की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णवा वृंद की जय। जय 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 श्री राधे श्याम, जय 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 श्री वृंदावन धाम। Hare Krishna. So after Mangalacharan prayers and Gopi Geetam, now we are so fortunate to be studying this section of the Krishna book on this auspicious day of Rasa Purnima. We're going to study about the Gopis Rasa Leela with Lord Shri Krishna. And the last 3-4 days, the last 3-4 sessions, we've been discussing how it is very important to understand what is the mood in which we need to study, especially this section of the Krishna book. Right, we're going to describe, or we're going to read Srila Prabhupada as he describes this description of the rasa dance along with the right philosophy. Right, when Prabhupada writes, then we can very safely study these pastimes, because we know that Srila Prabhupada actually gives the sweetness of the Lord, and he gives such sweetness along with the right kind of philosophy, so that we understand with the right perspective and we meditate on these pastimes of the Lord with the right understanding, so that we don't misinterpret these wonderful leelas of the Lord that could actually cut the root of our bhakti. Right. So continuing, yesterday we completed chapter number 32. So today we'll continue from chapter number 33, which is description of the rasa dance. So again, we reiterate this point that when the gopis were feeling a little bit of man, that I am giving pleasure to Lord Shri Krishna, when Krishna disappeared, then the gopis sang this Gopi Geet, describing the various pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the killing of Putana, or the liberation of Putana, the deliverance of Kalia, and the killing of various demons like what do you call, Vatsasura, and the killing of Trinavrata and all those demons, right? And how he extinguished the forest fire, right? How he killed Bakasura, like that. The various descriptions of the Lord's various leelas being described by the gopis as they are remembering the Lord in separation from the Lord. And then what happens after at the end of the song by the gopis, where the gopis are kindly inviting Krishna to come back to enjoy Rasa Leela for the pleasure of the Lord, right? Then Krishna actually comes back. And then we discussed yesterday, how we ended the session yesterday was, there is this transcendental competition between the Lord and his devotees. The Lord always wants to please his devotees. The devotees always want to please the Lord, especially great devotees like the gopis of Vrindavan. They want to always please the Lord. The Lord always wants to please the devotees. And this transcendental competition is eternal and perennial. It goes on forever. So in this way, Krishna returns back to the Rasa arena. And then let's see what Srila Prabhupada is describing about this wonderful rasa dance between Lord Shri Krishna and the gopis of Vrindavan. All right. Shobha Mataji, go ahead. Chapter number 33.
Chapter number 33, Dandavat Pranam Mataji and Prabhuji, Jai, chapter 33, Damodar Mas Ki Jai, description of Rasa dance. Thus, hearing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna speaking to pacify them, the gopis became very much pleased. They became completely relieved of the great suffering of separation, not only by hearing the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but also by touching his hands and legs. After this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead began his Rasa dance. A dance in the midst of the many girls is called a Rasa dance. So Krishna began to dance among the most beautiful and fortunate girls within the three worlds. The gopis of Vrindavana, who were so attracted to him, danced with Krishna hand in hand. Krishna's Rasa dance should never be compared to any kind of material dance, such as ball dance or a society dance. The Rasa dance is a completely spiritual performance. In order to establish this fact, Krishna, the Supreme Mystic, expanded himself into many forms and stood beside each gopi, placing his hands on the shoulders of the gopis on both sides of him. He began to dance in their midst. The mystic expansions of Krishna were never not perceived by the gopis because Krishna appeared alone to each of them. Each gopi thought that Krishna was dancing with her alone. Above the wonderful dance flew many aeroplanes carrying the denizens of the heavenly planets who were very eager to see the wonderful dance of Krishna with the gopis. The Gandharvas and the Kinkaras began to sing, and accompanied by their respective wives, all the Gandharvas began to shower flowers on the dancers. As the gopis and Krishna danced together, a very blissful musical sound was produced from the tinkling of their bells, ornaments, and bangles. It appeared that Krishna was a greenish sapphire locket in the midst of a golden necklace decorated with valuable stones. While Krishna and the gopis danced, they displayed extraordinary bodily features. The movements of their legs, their placing their hands on one another. The movements of their eyebrows, their smiling, the movements of the gopis' breasts, gopis' cloths and earrings, their cheeks, their hair with flowers. As Krishna and the gopis sang and danced, they combined to appear like clouds, thunder, snow, and lightning. Krishna's bodily features appeared just like a group of clouds. The gopis' songs were like thunder. Their beauty appeared to be just like lightning in the sky, and the drops of perspiration visible on their faces appeared like falling snow. In this way, the gopis and Krishna fully engaged in dancing. The neck of the gopis became tint with red hue to their desire to enjoy Krishna more and more. To satisfy
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Please forgive me. All right. So, aham sarvasya prabhavo. Hare Krishna. Am I audible? Okay, I don't know what happened. Okay. Anyways, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay. So this section, right, what Shobha Mataji was reading right now, right, as we go ahead on this particular section. So again, it is important to reiterate the fact that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Aham sarvasya prabho mataha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. Right? So Krishna himself tells in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, 9, 10, 11, Chaturshloki verses of Bhagavad Gita, aham sarvasya prabhavo. That means, Krishna says everything emanates from me. Matha sarvam pravartate. Right? I am the source of the material and the spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. Right? So we understand the greatness of the Lord. And we also spoke about the Govardhan Leela, where the Lord lifted on the small finger of his left hand. He lifted the Govardhan hill. And Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita itself that if anyone wants to claim that I am God, I also want to perform Rasa Leela, etc. Somebody wants to imitate the Lord. Then Srila Prabhupada asks, all of the masses, the common people who are likely to be confused by such false incarnations, should ask them to either show their Vishwarupa form or to lift the Govardhan hill, right? They need not even lift with the small finger. Prabhupada says in one lecture, let them lift the Govardhan hill and stay there for 7 days. Hold it up for 7 days, or let them even lift once. That is also enough. So in this way, Prabhupada says, the pastimes of the Lord are not meant to be imitated, right? The pastimes of the Lord are meant to be relished with the proper understanding that this is the loving reciprocation between the Lord and his pure devotees, which are not meant to be imitated, but which are enabling us to understand the greatness of the Lord and increases our desire to follow Lord's instructions. Right? If the Lord is so merciful, the Lord is so lovable, the Lord is exchanging so much of loving reciprocation with his pure devotees. Right? We are also devotees of the Lord, but due to our kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya attitude, we are now suffering in this material world. So this is to increase our laulyam, our greed, to actually go back home, back to Godhead, to lovingly engage in the service. Right? Lalita, Vishaka, Adi, Jatashaki, Vrinda, Agnyaya, Koriyo, Seba, Charanara, Vinda. Right? Agnyaya, Koribo, Seva. Right? We take the blessings of Lalita, Vishaka, Adi, Jatashaki, Vrinda, all the gopis and manjaris of Vrindavan. We take their blessings and we also want to engage in some service in the loving pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna, in the loving pastimes of Rasa Leela. So that should be our mood, that we want to serve for the pleasure of the Lord. and not think that, okay, I will try to imitate the pastimes of the Lord, right? If that kind of consciousness is there in our heart, then Prabhupada actually says that when somebody reads this section as described by Prabhupada, right, with the proper attitude, then what happens? Even the lust that is there in the heart gets driven away. The lust that is there for, I also want to enjoy, that kind of propensity gets driven away when one studies this section of the Rasa Leela pastimes of the Lord. And that too, when we are actually studying Srila Prabhupada's description of it with proper philosophy, with proper context that is established for us here, that this is, and Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Krishna, when he wants to enjoy, he expands himself into Radharani. His female form is Radharani. Radha and Krishna are non-different. And when Radha and Krishna want to combine together, they combine together as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahi Anya. And Radharani is the source of expansion. Radharani is the source of all the Lakshmis. All the Lakshmis who are serving in the Vaikuntha planets are expansions of Radharani. All the Jiva Tattvas, they are also expansions of Srimati Radharani. So, just like Radharani and the gopis are surrendering themselves to Krishna for his enjoyment, we are also supposed to surrender ourselves for the enjoyment of Lord Sri Krishna. Because Ekala Ishvara Krishna. Krishna is the only Lord. Krishna is the only enjoyer. We are all meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. So with that mentality, with that attitude, if you're going to study this pastime, then Prabhupada says, all of the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya that is there in our heart will die down. That is the Falashruti of studying this chapter with the proper consciousness. All right, so let's move ahead now. Okay, as the gopis and Krishna, all right, we'll ask Anusha Mataji, please go ahead. No, we have to start from here. The next of the gopis became tinted. Let's pray to have the right consciousness as we study this. This most, what can I say? The most confidential pastimes of the Lord that we are able to study and try to understand in the proper perspective by the causeless mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The necks of the gopis became tinted with red due to their desire to enjoy Krishna more and more.
So whenever we see here that the gopis want to enjoy Krishna more and more, they want to be enjoyed by Krishna. And when something gives pleasure to Krishna, that gives enjoyment to the gopis also. The gopis do not want to enjoy anything for themselves. The gopis do not want any kind of independent enjoyment. But what do they want to enjoy? They want to enjoy that they are giving pleasure to Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna's enjoyment is what they are enjoying. They are enjoying to see their beloved Lord Sri Krishna enjoying. So this is the tattva that we need to enjoy, that we need to understand. Our enjoyment should be dovetailed in service of the Supreme Lord. When we see that the Lord is enjoying by our performing devotional service, and whatever sacrifice is required to be done from our end to ensure that Lord Krishna is pleased, we should be willing to do that kind of sacrifice. That is a characteristic of the greatest of the devotees of the Lord, who are the gopis of Vrindavan. Yes, Mataji, go ahead. Sorry. Yes. Anusha Mataji, are you unmuted or?
Yes. No, Mataji,
yes,
the screen was not. Yes. Sorry, Mataji. Hare
okay.
Krishna.
Okay.
To satisfy them, Krishna began to clap his hands in time with their singing. Actually, the whole world is full of Krishna's singing, but it is appreciated in different ways by different kinds of living entities. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeyata mam prapadyante tamstateva bhajamyaham. Krishna is dancing, and every living entity is also dancing. But there is a difference between the dancing in the spiritual world and that in the material world. This is expressed by the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, who says that the master dancer is Krishna and everyone else is his servant. Everyone is trying to imitate Krishna's dancing. Those who are actually in Krishna consciousness respond rightly to the dancing of Krishna. They do not try to dance independently, but those in the material world try to imitate Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entities are dancing under the direction of Krishna's Maya and are thinking that they are equal to Krishna. But this is not a fact. In Krishna consciousness, this misconception is absent. For a person in Krishna consciousness, knows that Krishna is the supreme master and everyone else is his servant. One has to dance to please Krishna. not to imitate or attempt to become equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The gopis wanted to please Krishna, and therefore, as Krishna sang, they responded and encouraged him by saying, "Well done, well done." Sometimes they presented beautiful music for his pleasure, and he responded by praising their singing. Can I go ahead, Mataji?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when some of the gopis became very tired from dancing and moving their bodies, they placed their hands on the shoulders of Sri Krishna. Then their hair loosened and flowers fell to the ground. When they placed their hands on Krishna's shoulder, they became overwhelmed by the fragrance of his body, which emanated from the lotus, other aromatic flowers, and the pulp of sandalwood. They became filled with attraction for him and they began to kiss him. Some gopis touched Krishna cheek to cheek, and Krishna began to offer them chewed betel nuts from his mouth, which they accepted with great pleasure by kissing. And by accepting those betel nuts, the gopis spiritually advanced. The gopis became tired after long singing and dancing. Krishna was dancing beside them, and to alleviate their fatigue, they took Sri Krishna's hand and placed it on their raised breasts. Krishna's hand, as well as the breasts of the gopis, are eternally auspicious. Therefore, when they combined, both of them became spiritually enhanced. The gopis so enjoyed the company of Krishna, the husband of the goddess of fortune, that they forgot that they had any other husbands in the world. And upon being embraced by the arms of Krishna and dancing and singing with him, they forgot everything. Srimad Bhagavatam thus describes the beauty of the gopis while they were rasa dancing with Krishna. There were lotus flowers over both their ears, and their faces were decorated with sandalwood pulp. They wore tilaka, and there were drops of perspiration on their smiling mouths. From their feet came the tinkling sound of ankle bells and bangles. The flowers within their hair were falling to the lotus feet of Krishna, and he was very satisfied. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, all these gopis are expansions of Krishna's pleasure potency. Touching their bodies with his hands and looking at their pleasing eyes, Krishna enjoyed the gopis exactly as a child enjoys playing with the reflection of his body in a mirror. When Krishna touched the different parts of their bodies, the gopis felt surcharged with spiritual energy. They could not adjust their loosened clothes, although they tried to keep them adjusted properly. Their hair and garments became scattered and their ornaments loosened as they forgot themselves in the company of Krishna. While Krishna was enjoying the company of the gopis in the rasa dance, the astonished demigods and their wives gathered in the sky. The moon, being afflicted with a sort of lust, began to watch the dance and became stunned with wonder. The gopis had prayed to the goddesses Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband. Now, Krishna was fulfilling their desire by expanding himself in as many forms as there were gopis and enjoying them exactly like a husband.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, in this way, Prabhupada actually describes how the Supreme Personality of Godhead was trying to fulfill the desires of the gopis who wanted to have this kind of Madhurya Ras with Krishna. And the gopis, on their part, they wanted to give pleasure to the Lord because they knew and they understood and they realized that they were meant for Krishna's enjoyment. And when we get this knowledge that we are meant to serve Krishna, Jivera Swarupa He Krishna Nitya Das, then we are eternally situated in our constitutional position. And then we will also get to know what is our Swarupa Siddhi, what is our Siddha Deha, in what way are we to serve the Supreme Personality of God, in what rasa are we supposed to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, Krishna does not need us to satisfy him, right? Prabhupada is going to explain now how Krishna is Atmaram, right? Krishna is completely satisfied on his own accord. He does not need us for his satisfaction. However, it is for our benefit that we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We offer our manasa, deho, geho, jo, kichumor in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that when Krishna is pleased, then we also get the real goal of the human form of life, which is Krishna Prema. All right, let's move ahead. Okay, Srimati Shamapriya Mataji, go ahead. Shri Shukadeva Goswami has remarked.
Hare Krishna Mataji, pranams. Shri Shukadeva Goswami has remarked that Krishna is self-sufficient. He is Atmarama. He does not need anyone else for his satisfaction. But because the gopis wanted Krishna as their husband, he fulfilled their desire.
When Krishna saw that the gopis were tired from dancing with him, he immediately began to wipe his hands over their faces so that their fatigue would be relieved. In order to reciprocate the kind hospitality of Krishna, the gopis began to look at him lovingly. They were overjoyed by the auspicious touch of the hand of Krishna. Their smiling cheek shone with beauty, and they began to sing the glories of Krishna with transcendental pleasure. As pure devotees, the more the gopis enjoyed Krishna's company, the more they became enlightened with his glories, and thus they reciprocated with him. They wanted to satisfy Krishna by glorifying his transcendental pastimes. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the master of all masters, and the gopis wanted to worship him for his unusual exhibition of mercy upon them. The gopis and Krishna entered the water of Yamuna just to relieve their fatigue from the rasa dance. The lily flower garlands around the necks of gopis were strewn to pieces due to the gopis embracing the body of Krishna, and the flowers were reddish from being smeared with the kunkuma on their breast. The bumblebees were humming about in order to get honey from the flowers. Krishna and the gopis entered the water of Yamuna just as an elephant enters a water tank with his many female companions. Both the gopis and Krishna forgot their real identities, playing in water, enjoying each other's company, and relieving the fatigue of rasa dancing. The gopis began to splash water on the body of Krishna, all the while smiling, and Krishna enjoyed this. As Krishna was taking pleasure in the joking words and splashing water, the demigods in the heavenly planets showered flowers. The demigods thus praised the excellent, super excellent rasa dance of Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, and his pastimes with the gopis in the water of the Yamuna. After this, the Lord Krishna and the gopis came out of water and began to stroll along the bank of Yamuna, where a nice breeze was blowing, carrying the aroma of different kinds of flowers over the water and land. While strolling on the bank of Yamuna, Krishna recited various kinds of poetry. He thus enjoyed the company of gopis in the soothing moonlight of autumn. Sex desire is especially excited in the autumn season. But the wonderful thing about Krishna's association with the gopi is that there was no question of sex desire. It was clearly stated in Bhagavata description by Shukadeva Goswami, Avaruddha Saurataha. The sex impulse was completely controlled. There is a distinction between Lord Krishna's dancing with the gopis and the ordinary dancing of living entities within the material world. In order to clear up further misconceptions about the rasa dance and the affairs of Krishna and the gopis, Maharaja Parikshit, the hearer of Srimad Bhagavatam, told Shukadeva Goswami, Krishna appeared on earth to establish the regulative principles of religion and to curb the predominance of irreligion. But the behavior of Krishna and the gopis might encourage irreligious principles in the material world. I'm simply surprised that he would act in such a way, enjoying the company of others' wife in the dead of night. This statement of Maharaj Parikshit's was very much appreciated by Sukadeva Goswami. The answer anticipates the abominable acts of the Mayavadi personalists who place themselves in the position of Krishna and enjoy the company of young girls and women. The Vedic injunctions never allow a person to enjoy sex with any woman except his own wife. Krishna's appreciation of the gopis appeared to be distinctly in violation of these rules. Maharaj Parikshit understood the total situation from Sukadeva Goswami, yet to further clarify the transcendental nature of Krishna and the gopis in the rasa dance, he expressed his surprise. This is very important in order to check the unrestricted association with women by the Prakrata Sahajiyas. In his statement, Maharaj Parikshit, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So here a very important point is actually described by Prabhupada, right? Prabhupada also tells in a lecture, Prabhupada says that the Shad Goswamis of Vrindavan, right? Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Gopala Bhatta Goswami, and Jiva Goswami, they all worshipped this and cherished and wrote literatures. If you say Nectar of Devotion, the Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, etc. They all describe these wonderful pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna, and how it is a desire of the gopis, how it's a desire of the Manjaris, it's a desire of the Goswamis to be eternally engaged in the service of, I send service to the divine couple, right? There is this beautiful song, Radha Krishna Prana Mora, right? Where somebody is offering Chandan to the Lord, somebody is offering Chamara to the Lord, right? As the Lord enjoys his pastimes with the gopis or with Srimati Radharani. So Prabhupada is explaining in this lecture how somebody who is completely given up everything, the Goswamis of Vrindavan are renounced personalities. They don't even, Kaupina Kanta Shritau, right? Their only possession was their cowpins, with which they were traveling to all the places of Vrindavan, excavating the wonderful pastime places of Vrindavan Dham, writing books. Those days they were not even paper, right? They used to write in the palm leaves, right? In this way, they were describing the pastimes of the Lord, and they were completely in the transcendence, and they were completely detached from material association. So in such a case, how can their object of worship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, how can he enjoy something material? So this is Urdhva Madaha Shakam. The love of this material world is lust, which gives, which is at a bodily platform, and the love of the transcendental world is the exhibition of, or the exhibition of surrenderance of each and every living entity for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what is explained by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaja Parikshit, right? When one is situated in the right constitutional position, one wants to serve. Whereas the Prakrita Sahajyas or the Mayavadi impersonalists, what do they want? They want to do? They want to either combine with the form of the Lord, or they want to imitate the Lord, trying to enjoy. So when we have this Bhoga Vritti mentality, enjoyment mentality, sense gratificatory propensities, then we know that we are in material consciousness. But when we have this this consciousness of always wanting to serve the Lord, for his pleasure, and not to expect anything in return from that kind of service, then we come to the consciousness of seva, right? Seva vritti. And only in that seva vritti can we actually perform devotional service. And that is the stage when we start performing devotional service. Pramabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. As long as we are lamenting for something that is lost in this material world, as long as we are hankering for something of this material world to enjoy our senses, we can never start the process of devotional service. We may be externally doing, but in our consciousness, we've not really started with the process of devotional service. So this is the kind of attitude that we need to develop, that I want to do this only for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, not that I want to derive pleasure by engaging in devotional service. Okay, let's continue. Okay, Rajneesh Prabhu, please go ahead in his statement. Maharaja Parikshit.
Hare Krishna Mata is Dandavat Pranam. In his statement, Maharaja Parikshit has used several important words which require clarification. The first word,
Jugupshitam.
Jugupshitam. Jugupshitam means
Oh, sorry. Yeah, here. Jugupshitam means abominable.
Jugupshitam means abominable. The first doubt of Maharaja Parikshit was as follows: Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who had advented himself to establish religious principles. Why then did he mix with others' wives in the dead of night and enjoy dancing, embracing, and kissing according to Vedic injunctions? This is not allowed. Also, when the gopis first came to him, he gave instructions to them to return to their homes. To call the wives of other persons or young girls and enjoying dancing with them is certainly abominable according to the Vedas. Why should Krishna had done this? Another word used here is aptakama. Aptakam. Some may take it for granted that Krishna was very lusty among the young girls, but Maharaja Parikshit Maharaja said that this was not possible. He could not be lusty. First of all, from the material calculation, he was only 8 years old. At that age, a boy cannot be lusty. Aptkama means that Supreme Personality of Godhead is self-satisfied. Even if he was lusty, he does not need to take help from others to satisfy his desires. The next point is that although not lusty himself, he might have been seduced by lusty desires of gopis. But Maharaja Parikshit then used another word, Yadupati, which indicates that Krishna is the most exalted personality of dynasty of Yadus. The kings of dynasty of Yadu were considered to be the most pious, and their descendants were also like that. Having taken birth in that family, how could Krishna have been seduced? even by gopis. It is concluded therefore that it was not possible for Krishna to do anything abominable, but Maharaja Parikshit was in doubt as to why Krishna acted in that way. What was the real purpose? In other
Hare
words,
Krishna. Thank you,
Maharaj
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
This is very interesting, right? So in order to ensure that, there are no misconceptions, Prabhupada, himself and Prabhupada is quoting those particular verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, asking those questions, right? These are the kind of questions that could arise in the mind of the readers of the Bhagavatam, right? Why is Krishna calling, in terms of playing the flute, he's calling the wives of other people. Why is he calling them in the middle of the night? Why is he dancing with them? While it is mentioned in the scriptures that one should consider everybody other than one's wife as one's mother. Such is the instruction given by the Lord, right? Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavat pranitam. If this is the dharma that is given by the Lord, why is the Lord himself is seeming to be behaving in an adharmic way? Right? So people have these kind of questions. And that is why Parikshit Maharaj is using specific words even when he is asking those questions. Right? He's saying apta kama. Apta kama means somebody who's self-satisfied, who does not need somebody else to satisfy his desires. Then why is Krishna calling when Krishna is apta kama? That means Krishna is already satisfied. Why is he calling the gopis to fulfill his desires? It is jugupshitam. That is so abominable. Why is he, even if he has desires, why is he calling the gopis and doing this abominable act? Right? And then Parikshit Maharaj himself is using the word Yadupati. Yadupati means Krishna is the most exalted person of the Yadu dynasty. We all know Krishna was born in the Yadu dynasty. And then now he's asking Shukadeva Goswami to explain that, just like Arjuna asked questions for which Bhagavad Gita could be spoken to the masses, to the wider audience who could have some doubts in the future. So similarly, Parikshit Maharaj is asking this question to Shukadeva Goswami so that in future, the readers, when they have this kind of question, why did Krishna call the gopis, who are other people's wives, in the middle of the night? And why did he call them for dancing? Why does he want to enjoy with other people's wives? So this question, when it is arisen, then this answer that is given by Shukadeva Goswami will put to rest everything, all the misconceptions that could arise by studying this pastime by the ordinary people. So let's hear the Shukadeva Goswami's answers to these wonderful questions by Parikshit Maharaj, which Parikshit Maharaj is convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. That's why he's using all these words, right? That he is self-satisfied. He cannot be put into conviction, put into illusion by the gopis, or he cannot be made to become sexually inclined by the gopis. Why? Because he is the Lord. He is Yadupati. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His expansion, Srimati Radharani's expansions are all of these gopis. And these gopis we also saw in Ramachandra Leela. Previously also Prabhupada has explained. Right? In Ramachandra Leela, they were all sages who wanted to enjoy this Madhurya Ras. Just give pleasure to them, to those wonderful devotees who sacrifice their lives for him. So Krishna is actually engaging in providing them with the enjoyment that they desired. And we also know that the gopis also worship Katyayani Devi. The next month is Katyayani Devi Vrata. So they worship for 1 full year. And then the year ends with Krishna actually performing this Rasa Leela in this auspicious month of Kartik, right? Just before, during the Sharad Purnima Mahamantra. So this is the culmination of all the prayers that the gopis did to Katyayani Devi to get Krishna as their husband. So for all these reasons, we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. So even if Krishna enjoys these gopis, the gopis are the expansion of his own body. Like Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example. Just like a child plays with this reflection of his own body. Right? So the Lord is using his own energies to fulfill his own desires. And that too, he's not doing it for his own desires. He is using that to fulfill the desires of the devotees who love him. Right? So this is the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, Deval Mataji, go ahead. Another word Parikshit Maharaj used, right, from there.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanur Pranam. Another word Maharaja Parikshit used when he addressed Shukdev Goswami is Suvrata. Suvrata, which means to take a vow to enact pious activities. Shukdev Goswami was an educated brahmachari, and under the circumstances, it was not possible for him to indulge in sex. This is strictly prohibited for brahmacharis, and what to speak of a brahmachari like Shukdev Goswami. But because the circumstances of the Rasa dance were very suspect, Maharaja Parikshit inquired for clarification from Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami immediately replied that the transgressions of religious principles by the Supreme Controller testify to his great power. For example, fire can consume any abominable thing. That is a manifestation of the supremacy of fire. Similarly, the sun can absorb water from a urinal or from stool, and the sun is not polluted. Rather, due to the influence of the sunshine, the polluted contaminated place becomes disinfected and sterilized. One may also argue that since Krishna is the supreme authority, his activities should be followed. In answer to this argument, Shukdev Goswami has very clearly said that the Ishvara or supreme controller may sometimes violate his own instructions, but this is possible only for the controller himself, not for the followers. Unusual and uncommon activities by the controller can never be imitated. Shukdev Goswami warned that the conditioned followers who are not actually in control should never even imagine imitating the uncommon activities of the controller. A Mayavadi philosopher may falsely claim to be God or Krishna, but he cannot actually act like Krishna. He can persuade his followers to falsely imitate the rasa dance, but he is unable to lift Govardhana hill. We may have experiences in the past of Mayavadi rascals who delude their followers by posing themselves as Krishna in order to enjoy Rasa Leela. In many instances, they were checked by the government, arrested, and punished. In Orissa, Thakura Bhakti Vinoda punished a so-called incarnation of Vishnu who was imitating the Rasa Leela with young girls. There were many complaints against the so-called incarnation. At that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a magistrate and the government deputed him to deal with the rascal and he punished him very severely. The Rasa Leela dance cannot be imitated by anyone. Shukdev Goswami warns that one should not even think of imitating it. He specifically mentions that if out of foolishness one tries to imitate Krishna's Rasa dance, he will be killed, just like a person who wants to imitate Lord Shiva's drinking of an ocean of poison. Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison and kept it within the throat. The poison made his throat turn blue, and therefore Lord Shiva is called Neelkantha. But if any ordinary person tries to imitate Lord Shiva by drinking poison or smoking ganja, he is sure to be vanquished and will die within a very short time. Lord Shri Krishna's dealings with the gopis occurred under special circumstances. Hare Krishna, Mataji, should I continue?
Yeah, you can read the next paragraph also and we'll end it.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Most of the gopis in their previous lives were great sages, expert in the study of the Vedas, and when Lord Krishna appeared as Lord Ramchandra, they wanted to enjoy with him. Lord Ramchandra gave them the benediction that their desires would be fulfilled when he would appear as Krishna. Therefore, the desire of the gopis to enjoy the appearance of Lord Krishna was long cherished. So they approached the goddess Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband. There are many other circumstances which also testify to the supreme authority of Krishna and show that he is not bound by the rules and regulations of the material world. In special cases, he acts as he likes to favor his devotees. This is possible only for him because he is the supreme controller. People in general should follow the instructions of Lord Krishna as given in Bhagavad Gita and should not even imagine imitating Lord Krishna in the Rasa dance. Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Thank you. Dandavat.
So here we are supposed to do Anusharan and not Anukaran. We are not supposed to imitate the activities of the Lord. Rather, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to simply follow the instructions of the Lord. That is what is the final reply given by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, that although the Lord may seem to be transgressing those laws, those are laws created by the Lord, right? Just like the Supreme, Prabhupada gives the example of a Supreme Court judge. He's not liable, for the statements that he's passing, because that is a judgment for a particular case that the Supreme court judge is giving, right? He's not subject to that particular thing, right? So similarly, the Lord who gives out the dharmam to sakshat bhagavat pranitam, he is not bound the laws that is given for the ordinary people, right? The devotees of the Lord are transcendental, although sometimes it may seem that the Lord or his devotees are doing something which seems contrary to the scriptures. It is because of our lack of understanding about it, and not that we blame the Lord or the devotees for it. Yeah, because they are transcendental. They can never be subject to anything that is material, right? So like that. Okay, let's move ahead. The last section of this. Let me share my screen. Okay, Sudha Mataji, go ahead. Krishna's lifting of Govardhan hill.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam. Krishna's lifting of Govardhan hill and his killing of great demons like Putana are all obviously extraordinary activities. Similarly, the Rasa dance is also an uncommon activity and cannot be imitated by any ordinary man. An ordinary person engaged in his occupational duty like Arjuna should execute his duty for the satisfaction of Krishna. That is within his power. Arjuna was a fighter and Krishna wanted him to fight for his satisfaction. Arjuna agreed, although at first he was not willing to fight. Duties are required for ordinary persons. They should not jump up and try to imitate Krishna and indulge in Rasa Leela and thus bring about their ruin. One should know with certainty that Krishna had no personal interest in whatever he did for the benediction of the gopis. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Na mam karmani limpanti. Krishna never enjoys or suffers the results of his activities. Therefore, it is not possible for him to act irreligiously. He is transcendental to all religious duties and principles. He is untouched by the modes of material nature. He is the supreme controller of all living entities, whether in human society, in demigod society, in the heavenly planets, or in lower forms of life. And he is also the supreme controller of material nature. Therefore, he has nothing to do with religious and irreligious principles. Shukdev Goswami further concludes that the great sages and devotees who are washed clean of all conditioned life can move freely even within the contamination of material nature by keeping Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within their hearts. In this way, they also do not become subject to the laws of pleasure and pain in the modes of material nature. How then is it possible for Krishna, who appears by his own internal potency, to be subject to the laws of karma? In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord clearly says that whenever he appears, he does so by his internal potency. He is not forced to accept a body by the laws of karma like an ordinary living entity. Every other living entity is forced to accept a certain type of body by his previous actions. But when Krishna appears, he always appears in a body that is not forced upon him by the action of his past deeds. His body is a vehicle for his transcendental pleasure pastimes, which are enacted by his internal potency. He has no obligation to the laws of karma. The Mayavadi monist must accept a certain type of body, being forced by the laws of nature. Therefore, his claim to being one with Krishna or God is only theoretical. Such persons who claim to be equal with Krishna and indulge in Rasalila create a dangerous situation for the people in general. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was already present as the Supersoul within the bodies of the gopis and their husbands. He is the guide of all living entities, as is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. The Supersoul directs the individual soul to act, and the Supersoul is the actor and witness of all action. It is confirmed in the
Hare
Bhagavad Gita. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right. So let's continue reading. Next, who will read here? Yeah, so we understand here the point that Prabhupada is making here, reiterating this point. That when Krishna appears, he appears according to his own will. Whereas when we are born in this material world, we are being forced into the womb of a mother because of our past activities and our past illicit desires, because of our tendency to enjoy independent of the Lord. So because of that, we are forced into certain positions, right, in this material world. Therefore, we are under the three modes of material nature. Whereas the Lord is eternally transcendental to the three modes, and the Lord appears by his own will. Okay. Let's move ahead. I think we will complete this chapter. We'll do Damodar Ashtakam. I think we'll end by 12:15 or so. Yeah. Okay. Now who was reading? Sindhu Mataji, go ahead. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita.
Hare Krishna Pranam Sindhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is present in everyone's heart and that from him come all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. He is the original person to be known by Vedic knowledge. He is the author of the Vedanta philosophy. And he knows the Vedanta philosophy perfectly well. The so-called Vedantists and Mayavadis cannot understand Krishna as he is. They simply misled their followers by imitating the actions of Krishna in an unauthorized way. Krishna, the supersoul of everyone, is already within the body of everyone. Therefore, if he sees someone or embraces someone, there is no question of impropriety. Some ask that if Krishna is self-sufficient, why did he at all manifest the pastimes with the gopis, which are disturbing to the so-called moralists of the world? The answer is that such activities show special mercy to the fallen conditioned souls. The gopis are expansions of his internal energy, but because Krishna wanted to exhibit the Rasa Leela, they appeared as ordinary human beings. In the material world, pleasure is ultimately manifested in the sex attraction between the man and the women. The man lives simply to be attracted by women, and the women live simply to be attracted by men. That is a basic principle of material life. As soon as these attractions are combined, people become more and more implicated in material existence. In order to show them special favor, Krishna exhibited this Rasa Leela dance. It is just to captivate the conditioned souls. Since they are very much attracted by sex, they can enjoy the same life with Krishna and thus become liberated from the material condition. The second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaja Parikshit also explains that the pastimes and activities of Lord Krishna are the medicine for the conditioned souls. If they simply hear about Krishna, they become relieved of the material disease. They are addicted to material enjoyment and are accustomed to reading sex literature. But by hearing these transcendental pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, they will be relieved of material contamination.
Hare
How they
Krishna.
should
Thank you,
hear-
Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna. So this is the Falashruti, right? Anyone who hears these pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna, the Rathrani, the rasa pastimes of the Lord with the gopis, automatically any lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion that is there in the heart of such an individual will automatically get extinguished because of the recitation or because of meditation on these wonderful pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis. And one should hear with a proper frame of mind. That's why Prabhupada is reiterating and reiterating and reiterating. So that we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. We are not supposed to imitate the pastimes of the Lord. Rather, we are supposed to follow the directions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, the last one or two paragraphs are there. Okay, Leela Nandini Mataji, go ahead. Are you able to see the screen? One second. Yes, Mataji, go ahead. Please unmute. How they should hear.
Hare Krishna Mataji, how they should hear and from whom it's also explained by Sukadeva Goswami. The difficulty is that the whole world is full of Mayavadis, and when they become professional reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam, and when people without knowing the effect of the Mayavada philosophy hear from such persons, they become confused. Discussion of the Rasa Leela among people in general is discouraged because they are affected by the Mayavadi philosophy. But if one who is advanced explains and people hear from him, certainly the hearers will be gradually elevated to the position of Krishna consciousness and liberated from materially contaminated life. Another important point is that none of the gopis who danced with Krishna were in their material bodies. They danced with Krishna in their spiritual bodies. All their husbands thought that their wives were sleeping by their sides. The so-called husbands of the gopis were already enamored with the influence of the Western energy of Krishna. So by dint of this very energy, they could not understand that their wives had gone to dance with Krishna. What then is the basis of accusing Krishna of dancing with others' wives? The bodies of the gopis, which were their husbands, were lying in bed, but the spiritual parts and parcels of Krishna were dancing with him. Krishna is the supreme person, the whole spirit, and he danced with the spiritual bodies of the gopis. There is therefore no reason to accuse Krishna in any way. After the Rasa dance was over, the night of Brahma, a very, very long period, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, turned into the Brahma Muhurta. The Brahma Muhurta takes place about 1.5 hours before sunrise. It is recommended that one should rise from bed at that time, and after finishing daily ablutions, meditate to spiritual activities by performing Mangala Arati and chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This period is very convenient for the execution of spiritual activities. When that auspicious moment arrived, Krishna asked the gopis to leave. Although his beloveds were not willing to quit his company, they were very obedient to him. As soon as Krishna asked them to go home, they immediately left and returned home. Sukadeva Goswami concludes this episode of the Rasa Leela by pointing out that if a person hears from the right source about the pastimes of Krishna, who is Vishnu himself, and the gopis, who are expansions of his energy, then he will be relieved of the most dangerous type of disease, namely lust. In other words, one who actually hears the Rasa Leela will become completely free from the lusty desire of sex life and elevated to the highest level of spiritual understanding. Generally, because they hear the Rasa Leela from Mayavadis and they themselves are Mayavadis, people become more and more implicated in their sex life. The conditioned soul should hear the Rasa Leela dance from an authorized spiritual master and be trained by him so that he can understand the whole situation. Thus, one can be elevated to the highest standard of spiritual life, otherwise, one will be implicated. Material lust is a kind of heart disease, and to cure the material heart disease of the conditioned soul, it is recommended that one should hear, but not from the impersonate rascals. If one hears from the right sources with right understanding, then his situation will be different. Sukadeva Goswami has used Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Dandat Pranam.
Hari bol, Hari
So,
bol, Hari bol.
here, this is very, very wonderful, isn't it? This is also quite inconceivable. How the same knowledge, when it is received, like Prabhupada gives example of the milk that is touched by the snake, right? It's the same milk which has the potential of giving energy, right? Which has the potential of giving nourishment. But if it is that is touched of a serpent. If a serpent touches that milk, then it will become poisonous. Similarly, the same Rasa Leela pastimes of the Lord, when one hears it under a proper authority, under a bona fide spiritual master, then it can give the highest benefit. However, when the same kind of knowledge is actually received from a Mayavadi or from a Prakrita Sahaja, then what happens? The same kind of knowledge, the same knowledge, but actually put one in the lowest stage of life, or may destroy the creeper of one's bhakti. Right? That's why it's very important whom we hear from, even the pastimes of the Lord. Okay, at the last who will read? Okay, Sudha Mataji, you wanted to read?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, I have read Mataji. Should I continue?
Yeah, you read the next part. Yeah, you complete the last two paragraphs. Shukadev Goswami has used the word from there.
Shukadev Goswami uses two specific words.
No. Shukadev Goswami has used the word Shraddhanvita.
Okay, yeah. Shukadev Goswami has used the word Shraddhanvita for one who is trained in spiritual life. Shraddha of faith is the beginning. One who has developed his faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Spirit Soul, can both describe and hear the Rasa Leela. Shukadev also uses the word Anushruniyat. One must hear from the disciplic succession. Anu means following and Anu also means always. So one must always follow the disciplic succession and not hear from any stray professional reciter, whether a Mayavadi or an ordinary man. Anushrunyat means that one must hear from an authorized person who is in the disciplic succession and is always engaged in Krishna consciousness. When a person hears the Rasa Leela in this way, the effect will be sure. He will be elevated to the highest position of spiritual life. Sukdev Goswami uses two specific words, Bhaktim and Param. Bhaktim Param means execution of devotional service above the neophyte stage. Those who are simply attracted to temple worship but do not know the philosophy of bhakti are in the neophyte stage. That sort of bhakti is not the perfectional stage. The perfectional stage of bhakti or devotional service is completely free from material contamination. The most dangerous aspect of contamination is lust or sex life. Bhaktim Param, devotional service, is so potent that the more one advances in this line, the more he loses his attraction for material life. One who is actually deriving benefit from hearing the Rasa Leela dance surely achieves the transcendental position. He surely loses all traces of lust in his heart. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura points out that according to the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma's day and Brahma's night are periods of solar years expanding to 43 lakh multiplied by 1000. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, the Rasa dance was performed during the long period of Brahma's night, but the gopis could not understand that. In order to fulfill their desire, Krishna extended the night to cover such a great period of time. One may ask how this was possible, and Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura reminds us that Krishna, although bound by a small rope, could show his mother the whole universe within his mouth. How was this possible? The answer is that he can do anything for the pleasure of his devotees. Similarly, because the gopis wanted to enjoy Krishna, they were given the opportunity to associate with him for a long period. This was done according to his promise. When Krishna stole the garments of the gopis while they were taking a bath at Chiragata on the Yamuna, he promised to fulfill their desire in some future night. In one night, therefore, they enjoyed the company of Krishna as their beloved husband, but that night was not an ordinary night. It was a night of Brahma lasting millions and millions of years. Everything is possible for Krishna, for he is the supreme controller. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the 33rd chapter of Krishna, description of the Rasa dance. Thank you, Mataji. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. So anything and everything is possible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are supposed to do Anu Sharan. That means we are supposed to take shelter of the Lord, follow the Lord's instructions, and in this way we'll also be one day be elevated that level where we can also assist in these wonderful pastimes of the Lord and in the mood of servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? When we give up our Bhoga Vritti and we enter into this platform of serving the Lord for his pleasure, in the mode of seva vritti, right, as service to the Lord, then everything will be manifest by the will of the Lord and by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam, Jai 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 Shri Vrindavan Dham. Okay, now let's quickly sing the Damodar Ashtakam, and then we will end our today's session. Okay, let me share my screen. This Damodar Ashtakam is when, today being the first day, okay, we will just, we all know what happened, right? From immune purification, we'll just hear, in a probably a nutshell, in a minute or two, right? How, Krishna is bound to a motor, right? Every day we will probably hear a little bit, as we'll be singing the Damodar Ashtakam every day in this month, right? On Saturdays and Sundays, when we're going to our local ISKCON temples or local ISKCON program, we'll be doing the Damodar Ashtakam, and Monday to Friday we're doing it from 11 to 12 or 11 to 12:15, like that. So, so here we are seeing how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bound by the ropes of his mother's love, right? And how she herself had to struggle so much to bind Lord Sri Krishna. It's not that she immediately, took a rope and she could bind Krishna. It is impossible to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is only when the Lord allows himself to be bound by the love of his devotee that the Lord can be bound, right? It is also described in the same Krishna book that how the Yashoda had to run behind Krishna, and she was perspiring, the flowers on her head were falling down, she was panting, she was breathless, she was sweating, but yet she would not give up her endeavor to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when we have this desire and the determination and the enthusiasm and the patience to continue with our devotional service, even though we are tired, even though we are sometimes we are feeling so dejected, yet we continue our process of devotional service, placing our trust in our gurus who has given us this process and who have already seen the results. We've seen in the lives of the devotees how they perfected their lives. So by seeing and by hearing from those wonderful devotees and following in our Vaishnava Acharyas, we have to simply continue our devotional service until the time we receive the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So these two ropes, the two fingers too short, that represents one finger is our endeavor to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to bind the Lord, to capture the Lord in our hearts. And the second row and the second shot, what happens is the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So we have to continue our endeavor until we get this mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the pastime that actually depicts. Every day of this month we'll be hearing the same pastime, but the more we relish the same pastime as we sing this Damodar Ashtakam, the more we know that we are advancing in Krishna consciousness. Namamishwaram Shachidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashodhabhiyolukaladhavamanam Paramrishtamathyanta Todruta Gopya Rudantamurnetrayugmamrijantam Parambudayugmena Satankanetram Mohoshvasakam Patrirekankakhanta Pitagraivam Damodaram Bhaktibadam Iti Drikshvalila Virananda Kunde Swagoshamimajantamakyapayanta Tadiyeshitagyeshu bhaktarjitatvam Punha prematastam sathavriti vande Param deva moksha na mokshavadim va Nachanyaham vareshadapiha Idam teva purnata gopala balam Sadami manasya virastam kimanyai Idam te mugambojam atyanta nilay Vritam kuntralai snigdha raktesha gopya Mohosyumbitam bimba raktadharam me Anasya virastam alam Laksholabai Namo Deva Damodarananta Vishnu Tasida Prabho Dukha Jala Vimagnam Kripa Drishti Vrishyati Dinam Vatanu Vihanisha Mamajnam Yedyakshidresha Kuberatmajau Baddha Murtye Vaya Advayamuchitau bhakti bhajau krithau cha Ata prema bhakti svakame prayatsa Namokshe graho me sthidhamodareha नमस्तेस्तु धाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोधरायात विश्वासधाम्ने नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यम् हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय जय जय जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा जय जय सुदर्शन जय राधा राम सुंदर राधा माधव राधा रास बिहारी श्री राधे जय राधा मदन मोहन राधा गोविंद जय राधा गोपीनाथ जय श्री राधे जय राधे 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 श्री राधे जय षड गोस्वामी जय गुरु परंपरा जय प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवानिताय गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल श्रील प्रभुपाद श्री गुरुदेव की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णवा वृंद की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल Hare Krishna. So thank you very much, dear devotees, for joining in and staying till the end of our session. We are half an hour late. Forgive me for that. So I can see nice darshan of all the devotees. Srimati Shamapriya Mataji, Anusha Mataji, and Pranab Prabhu, Shobha Mataji, Shubhangi Mataji, Harjeet Mataji, Karpagavalli Mataji, Sridhar Prabhu, Sarvagopeshwari Mataji, Rajneesh Prabhu, Lilandini Mataji, and all the devotees. Thank you very much for joining in. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद श्री गुरुदेव की जय। श्री रस पूर्णिमा महामहोत्सव की जय। शरद पूर्णिमा महामहोत्सव की जय। So devotees prepare kheer on this auspicious day and they place it outside in the balcony for Radha Krishna to enjoy their ras. And tomorrow morning you can keep a sieved plate, a small holes like that on top, so that your kheer is nice and fresh for their lordships to enjoy. And tomorrow morning you can take that prasad and you can serve amongst your family members. Right? Those of us who are fasting from sweets, what you can do, add a little milk and then take the little milk. So it's as good as eating the wonderful kheer and yet not eating sweet, right? Having kheer but not having kheer. All right. So thank you very much, dear devotees, for joining in. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nitai God Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. So meet you all tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock for our Brahma Murta chanting session. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dhanavad pranams. Oh, Lilandri Mataji, please text me. It's too late, Mataji, 12:30. I'll have to end the session right now. But send me a message. I'll reply back to you. Hare Krishna. Dhanavad pranams.